Hey, I'm Brian James.
And I'm Ian James.
And we are the two founders of Cohesion Games. And this is our first game, Dread Mariner.
Dread Mariner is a combination of Hyperlight Drifter and looter games like Diablo. You play as this sort of old, haggard warrior who was a Dread Mariner after the world has pretty much already ended. But he still has this drive to protect the people around him and to sort of exact revenge a bit against a lot of the monsters that wiped out his former Dread Mariner brethren. The goal was to have that sort of fast-paced, twitchy combat while also being able to farm for that loot and build out your character in a more specific way than you get to in something more linear like Hyperlight Drifter. We're combining quite a few different mechanics of sort of like melee action games with this ARPG looting element. So the goal is to have this fast-paced combat around while using abilities that you find from something like a mini boss to more specialize your build. So you might find like a poison ability that you can apply to your light attack, and you might find something else like chain lightning. Just depends on what you come across and what you decide to slot into your skills.
The world that you will explore as the Dread Mariner is going to be pretty much non-linear. You will progress and grow in power, but we want the player to have a lot of freedom as to where they go and when they go there. So if you're really, really skilled, you can just go straight to the end boss at level 1 and try a no-hit run. You can also just play the game normal, chill, put on YouTube or Netflix on the other monitor, and grind out in the end game we're planning.
Yeah, a lot of what I wanted to get out of this game was I really liked playing Hyperlight Drifter, but once I had beaten it, I didn't feel as much desire to go back and play it, but I still wanted to exist in that world. So one of the goals for Dread Mariner is to make it so that, there's different ways that you can play the game by actually like progressing through the story or going out and just farming for gear or taking part in the sort of extraction dungeon end game, really putting your build to the test.
We both know how to. We know we can both write some code.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. I've seen your code. You could say that you wrote it. I am the lead programmer for sure. I am a gameplay programmer at a AAA studio, and so I have had a lot of experience working on like my own personal projects, but I've also shipped a really big game, and I worked on some porting projects as well, like moving games from PC to console. So I have a decent chunk of professional game development experience at this point as a programmer. He does, well, I guess he can he can touch on it. What do you do here, Brian?
I make sure Ian's getting all of his work done. No, that's not what I do.
He just runs the Trello board.
What I do is, right now, I handle pretty much all of the art that you see in the game, from modeling to rendering and putting in Godot. I've also been the one that's, up to this point, primarily been creating the levels and characters and the enemies and stuff like that, but that's really just because Ian's been building a really in-depth combat system, and that's taken up a bunch of time. And so what can be done in the meantime? Well, it's generating ideas for content and systems. And
I guess I'm also kind of I would say that I'm like the vision holder. As much as I don't really like that term a lot, it feels very high level. The idea kind of started in my head, and then I pitched it to Brian, and he was on board with it. And so, yeah, I guess I've just been the one kind of directing the game, even though Brian's been the one churning out the majority of the content that we currently have in the game.
The aesthetic that we are going with also just makes much more sense for our skill sets and it's just the two of us. So someone's got to do it, and neither of us can really draw, so 3D modeling is where it lies, and rendering them out at the lower resolution.
We were already pulling inspiration from Diablo 2 and Diablo 1, and so it just made sense to kind of go with this lower resolution look.
It does so much to hide the flaws of bad textures, bad models, and bad animations, but when you put it in the game, it just looks really cool, and we are, we're not, what you're seeing on the screen is just so early.
Yeah, we're what, like 7 months in right now, I think?
Yeah, we're
Started in
about
August?
7 months in. Yeah. And the first 5 months of that almost was all pixel art style. So we have only shifted over about in the last 2 months.
Yeah, we didn't start working on that pipeline until kind of the beginning of 2026, and wondering if that would even work, doing tests. And then eventually, once we were pretty happy with that pipeline and how that stuff was looking in game, then trying to figure out the lighting to also fit the tone that we were looking for.
Then, I might come up with a system, because I tend to play, I think it's fair to say that I tend to play a lot more games than you. So, especially more like modern's not really the right word, but game genres that are in the modern zeitgeist, like survival.
I'm an old, grouchy, stuck in my ways kind of guy, I guess.
Yeah.
But with 2 kids, I don't have time. I don't have time to be a modern gamer.
True. And so, I might come up with a small system like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if we could mine ore in the game? Just because that's one of the things that I love to do in like survival games that I play with my friends. And to think about like the idea of just adding an iron ore vein in the world leads to, now we have our main currency of the game, which is iron, which then what can we do with iron? You can repair your equipment, you can like add on to your equipment, you can build, objects in the world, but it flows into like the world building combined with the systems, combined with the enemies and everything. And on top of the art and the content generation, I also do some smaller programming stuff, and I did a lot of the QA testing before we started really putting it in the hands of other people, and so that's what I've been doing here.
I would say that I tend to build the systems, and then Brian uses them. That's been like a pretty good
the tool. Yeah, I mean, I would call, or like so Ian built this component system to where I can easily go and make a spell in less than 10 minutes.
Without like any coding on your part.
Yeah, without any programming. I just need to like at some point make the art for it. Like I'll come up with an idea for a mini boss, for example, and I'll go out and try and build it, and whenever I hit a roadblock, Ian fixes it, and then continue, hit another roadblock, Ian fixes it, and until we get to a point where it's pretty solid, I'm going to Ian less and less and less, and we're just able to build and build and build.
Yeah, I think at this point we only have a handful of major systems that still need to be implemented into the game, such as saving and loading, and procedural dungeons. But once we get through those major systems, we're gonna start transitioning more and more into both of us working on content and just coding out the stuff as we run into roadblocks, just like Brian mentioned.
Dude, I'm super fucking excited about this game. Like, I think that the idea is so cool. So if you also think this is a really cool idea and want to follow along, please subscribe here.
The most important thing that you can do, though, if the game is interesting to you at all, is to go and wishlist it on Steam. We'll have a link below. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you can comment on this video, and we'll try to answer those questions as best that we can.
We will also be posting dev updates on our Steam page, so you can follow along there.
We're hoping to do a demo for Steam Next Fest in October.
We're not YouTubers, but we're putting these out to build a community of other gamers that want to play this game just like we do. So if you want to join our Discord server, there's a link below. There's also links to our other social media accounts that you can follow. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.